Too much light. I want.
Oh, here we go.
All right.
We're back.
God.
We're back again with Brittany and Sandra for the Friday morning crew. And we decided we were going to talk about just contemporary stuff that we're doing. And Sandra just finished a round, and Brittany was up all night with an 8-year-old whose yeast acted up again. So we can talk about that. So Sandra, tell us about your last round, how it went.
I finished a round last week prematurely. Hated it. I'm like, this is why.
I can't see you, Sandra. You're black.
Oh, you washed out. There we go. Is this better?
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't want to be washed out. And so
This is a chelation round, by the way. We're talking chelation. With what? What were you using? Lipoic acid?
I was using 75 milligrams of ALA. I was bumping up my dose.
Okay.
And then I missed my third nighttime alarm, and I'm like, oh. So I was really feeling groggy, like, okay, I raised my dose, and it was a shortened round for me because I like to do about 3.5 days on round to like really have minimal redistribution symptoms after that many doses. And so I really felt groggy. I'm like, oh, I'm a mess. And then about 30, a day of that, I was like, okay, all right, start again next week. And then this week's rolls around, and I'm like, okay, it's busy here. I'm like, I'm feeling ragged. I'm still not feeling up to par. Got a cold going through the house. I'm like, I don't want to get the sore throat part of that. Let me just hold off for a bit. And then I was like, you know what? If I want to feel better, I have to get back to the ALA, because nothing fixes a bad round, an improper round, than a proper round. So that's what I'm back to. And I've done the first night of that. And yeah.
Watch for my hand. When I put my hand up, I want to say something. So that makes me think, Sandra. Andy always said if you have, I guess it's if you get really bad redistribution, you should wait till it settles down before starting another round. On the other hand, sometimes starting that round will make you feel better. I mean, how can you figure that out? How can you?
I took more than the regular 3.5 or 3 days between rounds. I waited, like I said, I had illness going through the house. I'm like, I don't want to start a new round and end up making this whatever respiratory thing into a sinusitis thing that lingers longer. So it was really balancing. And I know I need to be well rested going into a round. If I'm already tired and running on very little sleep and feeling poorly, and then I start a round, it's just, I'm going to have to abort it or feel like crap or whatever. And that's not the goal of this. The goal is to feel better. So I'm like, okay. And then initially I thought, well, I'll do a 50 milligram round maybe, just to, okay, easy round, easy dosage. If I get redistribution, it's not as bad. But then I'm like, you know what? I had so many of the 75 milligram doses still made up. I'm like, I'm grabbing what I already have pre-made. So I restarted that same dose. I'm like, well, I'm back into it. I'm like, okay, this time it'll be different. Yeah. I maybe might even just ask my husband to, hey, I'm gonna take a nap and you let me know when my next dose is or something.
Well, what about this case? Like I'm talking to this guy who really messed up with Dr. P's protocol.
Oh, Dr. Pompa.
Yeah, he started at 50 milligrams of DMSA and just was, catapulted into, redistribution, adrenal crash city, couldn't get out of bed. And, like, it's like, I was waiting for him to recover from that to start a new round. Like, or like, what point do you do another round? It might help. What
with
would you say?
really bad adrenal involvement at that stage, it's like, okay, baby the adrenals, give it a few weeks, maybe, might even be months. I mean, really, I don't think there is a hard and fast this
Yeah,
many weeks.
you have to
It's like
figure it out.
you have to have, if they have adequate adrenal support, I think the recovery is faster.
Yes, it's
To be
sure.
able to say, okay, I will now test the waters at 10 milligrams
Yeah.
DMSA and
And if it's bad,
at the
stop
proper schedule.
immediately. Yeah.
Right. It's just like I said, nothing fixes a bad round like a good round. So it's like
I found that to be
you just
true. I mean, I was on a, I stopped chelating at one point. I was driving down to this meditation retreat and I got lost and I freaked out and I completely crashed my adrenals and I went into, like, and plus meditating is not that easy to tell you the truth.
use
I
your whole
couldn't
brain. Yeah.
sleep. I couldn't sleep. Every form of insomnia imaginable and all these symptoms. And I went down to the phone booth in the basement because they wouldn't let you use cell foot phones. I go to the phone booth in the basement like a criminal and called up Vitacos
Like,
and ordered some alpha lipoic acid. I took that stuff and I went to sleep immediately
oh wow.
just from the first dose of alpha lipoic acid. So like sometimes I wonder, yeah. Sometimes it
It
really
I
helps and
mean,
sometimes it makes you worse and you have to just figure that out. Yeah.
we know mercury is interferes or can interfere with the conversion of 5-HTP to melatonin. So I think a lot of the insomnia goes with that. That just, the poor regulation, the poor self-regulation overall, whether we're talking neurotransmitters, digestion, whatever it is, it can just mess it up.
It's got its
Messing with the
spoke in the wheel.
system, messes with your temperature, your body maintaining a regular, normal, healthy temperature. There's so many ways where it just jacks the system up. But insomnia was really bad for me. Like even getting to sleep was hard. So now it's like, okay, you know, take a moment and go through the day mentally, pillow talk, and then I'm asleep. And I'm like, okay,
Really? Do you sleep
yeah,
through the night?
I sleep better. I don't have to use the restroom anymore.
Okay.
In the what used to be just a regular interruption, I actually harnessed for making sure I take my nighttime doses. I would drink extra at night, knowing, I mean, in the evening, I would drink a little bit extra water. I'm like, okay, if the alarm doesn't wake me up, my full bladder will. So it was like a fail-safe type thing. And when then I noticed on round and off round that I took a dose and I didn't feel the urge to use the restroom. I'm like, whoa, this is a pretty big gain actually, because your adrenals make aldosterone and that minimizes urine production overnight. And when
Your
mercury
adrenals too.
damages the adrenal cortex, your body cannot make enough of this. So you constantly produce, similar amounts of urine compared to daytime. So you're and then you end up having to wake up to use the restroom, or in the
So
child
that's
in the
the
case of
is
children,
that what's behind
peeing at night.
the diabetes insipidus that's so common with mercury toxicity, or is that something else?
I don't know if it is directly connected to aldosterone. I just know aldosterone is produced in the adrenal cortex, and
That's what gets you
it's
through the night.
measurable as far as blood testing. It's measurable when people have low aldosterone. Like it's an indicator. It's a direct one-to-one thing, and already having um, a diagnosed adrenal condition, like allopathic medicine diagnosed me before I even knew anything about chelation and heavy metal toxicity. That kind of put it on my radar that, oh, these are damaged parts. And then when I learned about heavy metal chelation, it was like mercury damages these, that it really clicked together for me how it's interconnected that way. And then having the symptom relief of, oh, I can sleep through the night now. I mean, I got married thinking it's not normal. It's not fair that my husband doesn't wake up at night to go pee me when I'm waking up once or twice, or I'm like, this is not what's going on? And I'm like, you're abnormal, because I thought my normal was normal. I was normal in my head. And then I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. And so Tiffany, Brittany, I called you Tiffany, I beg your pardon. You were telling me that you were up all night with a child, or you didn't get very much sleep. It was your 8-year-old.
Oh, he had a rough round. I noticed for the last like week or so, we've been having like increased behaviors. Like we were back to hitting, screaming, fits. You know, you'd ask him something basic and you'd get it for asking. And I thought, okay, you know, let's look at ACE. I added more ACE, still a jerk.
Yeah, because the
Just
first thing you think is the adrenal glands for that
yeah.
kind of behavior. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And then I'm like, okay, there's a chance it might be yeast. And so I went to Jan first and she's like, yeah, you could just, you know, you could add some extra Pouty Arco. That's what we use because he's phenol sensitive and it works. I'm like, okay. So I got brave for once. I'm like, okay, we're going to add like 500 milligrams. Yeah, that was the behaviors went away, but it also brought on constipation and throwing up because of the constipation.
Oh,
So it
oh,
was, so it wasn't like a stomach flu. It was like at the end of the day, once he had eaten everything he was going to eat for the day, it all came up because the body couldn't do anything with it. I'm
There's
like,
no room for anything more.
yeah, it was like, okay. So at the same time, he learned how to communicate with me that he needed to throw up. He was not just standing in a room, you know, all over the place. So he came to us. He's like, help me, help me.
Poor baby.
The first time we had to clean up the entire bathroom. The second time he figured it out and, you know, figured it went somewhere that wasn't the ground. And so that was great. He was figuring out how to communicate with us, but it was rough. So yesterday I split the difference and did 250 milligrams added instead of the 500 and we were fine. Everything went fine yesterday.
What happened
So,
last night that you only got 6 hours sleep?
oh, that was my own fault.
Okay.
That was staying out too late with friends celebrating Christmas and not realizing until midnight that I had to get up this morning to be
Yeah, I
with
was
you ladies.
imagining you cradling an anxious
Oh,
child
goodness.
all night.
He sleeps amazing. He will go to bed, zero complaints. He'll sleep like, I don't know, 9 hours or so, and then he's up for his day and he's happy as a clam. Yeah, sleep is one thing that we managed to get back. He used to be, you know, not to bed till like 1, or he'd wake up at like 3 or 4, and now he's just like, once he's down, he's gone.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
What about yourself? Aren't you chelating too?
Yeah, I just finished round 69. So I was hoping for 70 by the end of the year. So I guess I'm hoping for like 73 by the end of the year.
wow.
It's going good. It's going good. I'm at 30 milligrams now. I was underdosing myself for like a month because I'm too conservative sometimes, I think. And so I'm sitting in redistribution when I'm just feeling off. I'm like, well, maybe the dose is too high. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to jump for it. And I jumped up and that solved the problem.
So you were getting symptoms because your dose was too low.
Yeah.
I saw somebody on the Facebook group who was dosing at 0.5 milligrams and was having a horrible time. And
Oh, I bet.
I think it's a big mistake to start that low. People are so scared they start that low, but it seems to
That's
be
the
a big
problem. The
mistake.
fear becomes this irrational thing that drives everything. And I call it the race to the bottom, you know. And then, of course, it doesn't work. If you feel poorly, like, yeah, the first inclination is, you know, when somebody gives too high of a dose and they feel poorly, that's what we say, lower the dose. But how low can you go before you create just permanent redistribution while you're trying to conduct a round? I mean, that's hard for people to. It's hard for anxious people to grasp that in that moment, I think, because fear is by default irrational.
Yes.
So
You're very
it's
hard to
just,
hear, Sandra. Can you get closer to your speaker?
I don't know. I'm not covering anything that I'm aware of. Can you
Maybe you
hear
have a
me
bad
better?
speaker. I've had
A bad-
a couple of
Oh,
listeners say that you need to get a speaker.
okay.
They're cheap.
speaker, a
People need to invest
microphone.
in a speaker, yeah. I think that'll make them
Well,
happy that I told
as
you
a
that.
setup here, maybe he needs to tell me how I can log in with that.
Okay,
He's got a Yeti mic here with the whatever,
okay.
even a screen so you don't hear the like a pop filter thing.
You've got the equipment, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, I just never even thought of it, but yeah, sure.
Okay.
Better.
I've had people tell me twice that they had hard time hearing you. Yeah, the comments on YouTube. Yeah.
I want to hear
YouTube.
it audible. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, good to know.
All right,
I
we were
don't watch
talking about the race to the bottom and being scared. People, of course, people
yeah,
are
and it's
scared because like 50% of them have PTSD from making one wrong step and, being, destroyed for months, which
untreated adrenal stress causing the anxiety. Just, it's a whole lot, I think, to unpack with Mercury. And Mercury
Yeah.
itself makes for the psychiatric stuff. It makes for the adrenals, creating more anxiety. It's
Yeah,
really
yeah.
a kind of a
And the
tricky
psychiatric
thing.
stuff is harder to bear than physical pain, has been my experience.
I agree. It's
Yeah,
hard
yeah.
to
Like people
because just answering a question and assuaging fear just leads to 10 more questions. What if and why? And it's like, okay, breathe, you're safe. But their nervous system is not feeling safe. So it's
yeah,
really
fear.
hard to have thoughts of safety when your body is just under constant, fight or flight type neurology where it's just, yeah, it makes you want to pull your hair out.
Yeah.
It makes you doubt everything. It makes you doubt yourself. It makes you doubt others. It's hard to make decisions from that place. It really is. So I have the empathy, but then there's also the point of go with best practices. It's not just I that's done this or experienced this. When I consider that children start at 5 milligrams, and do great, like with like immediate improvements. My youngest, I mean, I started with 3.5 milligrams because I'm like, this child is tiny. And after a round, I was like, okay, yeah, he's doing great. So yeah, I'll go to 5 milligrams. And I did because yeah, that's still a conservative dose. But how much smaller is a little child body mass? The comparison of body mass, where I'm like, he weighs like, a fraction of what I weigh. Why would I start at a teeny tiny dose? Like, if this stuff is used up throughout the body, I gotta have a little bit to not have redistribution of the ALA and its metabolites. It's the metabolites that do the chelating. So you want enough of that around to make it effective.
Dosing for children is a little bit different. We don't suggest they go under 5 milligrams.
Right.
No, that's
We
what I
can't
tell my
tell.
scaredy cats.
Yeah. We can't
Yeah.
tell when it's too low for them. So 5 is a good enough. Show up and they're like, where should I start? And then everyone starts chiming in with all these ideas like, oh, this is what I think. This is what I think. This is what I think. Like when we have people in the adult group come in and they're like, I don't know where to start. And that one microdoser shows up and says something. And you're like, please don't make your suggestion.
Yeah,
it's
please
gonna
stay
hurt
out of
them.
this. Yeah. But
And
there's
yeah.
still never I think that
and it's not good.
I think less than 5 milligrams is, I mean, I get, I wind up talking to these people who are really, really sick and have been, like anything messes them up. And they, but I less than 5 milligrams. I mean, then I could say 5 milligrams, but less than that, no. You think 5 milligrams?
I don't think that's
a scaredy cat.
What?
Yeah,
I was a scaredy cat when I started. And I consulted my oldest son. And I said, what dose do you think I should start at? Like, I'm thinking 12.5 milligrams. I'm, as an adult, knowing, having chelated my child, having him see him get better, I still had the fear in my head. So it was like 12.5 milligrams. I'm like, I've compounded these out of 50 milligram doses. I prepared, I and I took my first ALA dose after a really easily smooth 10 milligram DMSA doses for 3 months. And I took my first ALA dose, and within 30 minutes, I had this whooping headache of somebody is just tying the
How
band
much
around
was your
my
first, how much was your first LA dose?
12.5 milligrams.
And after that, did you lower it?
No, after those first 30 minutes and that headache kicking in after 30 minutes, I'm like, I'm going for the full 50 milligrams, so I don't have to do this every half an hour.
So you went up from 12, oh, so you,
I
12
immediately,
and a half, and half an hour you took more and you felt better.
yes, exactly, because I immediately connected this sudden onset of this crazy band around the head tension headache to this is redistribution, because I've seen my child have redistribution symptoms and complaining of headaches in that situation. So I'm like, this is not, I'm not dehydrated. I wasn't stressing out about any other life situation that, you know, could give you a headache. So I was like, I just took the
Well,
ALA. I think
if you hadn't seen it before, you would have thought, well, I've just
I
mobilized
would have
too much mercury.
I would have been or more easily scared, probably, yes.
You
So
say,
I
I'm
did
gonna
the
do
counter.
2.5 next time.
Yes,
That's what
exactly. I took
happens.
the full thing. I took 4 times as much because I figured if 30 minutes is when I get the redistribution symptom kicking in like this, if I
It
take
was
4 times
after
as
30
much,
minutes.
this is when I started taking ALA every 2 hours. I'm like, okay, multiply this dose by 4 and take it every 2 hours. And it worked. So it gave my body enough to
To
maybe maybe
do the
12 and a
job.
half, my liver could immediately, whatever, my body was metabolizing it so quickly. So I'm like, okay, quadruple that dose. And I was great. I got the ALA high. I got like, oh, I have energy. And
It's so hard to counsel people. I mean, do you tell people to start at 12 and a half?
no, I try to aim them. Adults, I aim usually higher. I give a range, but I'm like, don't go too low because I'm like, I wouldn't even get up for anything under 10 milligrams. I've probably said before, where it's like, as
So
an
like
adult,
20,
no. I
you tell
mean,
them to start at like 20?
don't give in to the fear,
Yeah.
It's
Well, I
hard.
mean, you know right away. I mean, like after 2 doses, you know, you can stop. This guy got messed up with 50 milligrams of DMSA.
Yeah, and then what was the dosing schedule? I mean, that's the other
Oh, no,
part
he
of
was doing it
that.
properly. He just,
That's
I just
see, I
assumed it
started
was too high a dose to start.
right.
That
I
was
started with 10
milligrams.
milligrams DMSA, and it felt like, oh, okay, my body is like, I think the DMSA just helped. I don't know, it helped my body feel better. I
Yeah.
don't think it was all placebo because you can't do placebo for 3 months. That every time you take this little pill, it makes you better. It's like, no, this was physiologically. It helped my liver probably unburden itself a bit because instead of having more dumped on it, there was actually an aid for it. My mood got better, my sleep got better, so it was clearing stuff and giving the body a bit of breathing room. And then ALA was like, whoa, the skies are opening even more, like it was a really happy experience for me.
My experience with DMSA is I did it way at the beginning when you get your amalgams done, you have that 3-month waiting period. So I did
Mm-hmm.
DMSA and it was all right, like I didn't feel anything particular. And then I added the ALA and I was like knocked flat on my back. I had horrible pains. My liver enzyme shot into the roof. And then in
Wow.
the middle of the night, I woke up and I said, "You've still got 3 crowns that you didn't look under." This was a long time ago, Brittany. It was like, so,
We didn't always have the spec check in the group. It was more like trust your dentist and no
yeah, it was a long time
dressing.
ago. We didn't know so much
Yeah.
about that. So I went back to the dentist. He said, "You sure you want to do this?" It was $3,000 to check under those crowns. And sure enough,
We're on there. There we
there was mercury under them. After that, it was
Worth it though. I
straight
mean, that
shot.
money's
It
worth
just
it.
got better.
spend obscene amounts of money sometimes to make sure that we're not chelating with a spec, because
Oh
that, I
gosh,
mean,
the
all that
dental
time's
part.
wasted if you are.
The
And
dental,
health is priceless. I mean, I think it's in that moment you realize once you're on the other side of that and they are removed, that's when you realize you cannot put a price on your health, because if you
Yeah.
don't do anything, your health will deteriorate. You feel mentally crappy, but then you have other body systems failing you too. It's even harder to save up this money. So the
yeah.
sooner you get
And
it
wait until you're
done,
70.
as you
and
get
start getting
better,
dementia. It's when you get, I think I started
yeah,
getting
you can't
dementia
even
at
make the
about
decisions
65.
anymore at that point. So yeah, like get it as early as you can, bite the bullet. And then on the other side, as you're getting better, I find it a whole lot easier to come up with ideas how to creatively create this money. I mean, just, you have more energy. How do you do a job if you don't have energy? You're not going to keep your job if your health is leaving you disabled and you have to fight for Social Security disability in the US, for example. Like that's even harder, I think. I'd rather get healthier.
Why
That's
do you
true.
think that this protocol
But I do have the support. I
is
have to
not
say,
well
I
known?
have the support. So the financial, the economic survival aspect wasn't externally driven that I delayed my own amalgam removals. It was internally. I felt guilty that if I didn't nurse one child as long as the other, that would be unfair to the other sibling. But meanwhile, my health was going down the shitter. So at some point, I was like, okay, emergency brake. We're turning around before I crash this thing into a wall. The thing being myself, where I'm just like, I can't keep going like this. It's not sustainable to just keep going, going, going. That's when I said, okay, Sandra, like, you got to do something, and it's about you. It's not for anybody else. It has to be for me, because I didn't want to spend the money on myself to have the amalgams removed. And then I'm like, but I'm getting worse. I'm not being a good mom for my children. That was my rock bottom mentally, where I was like, I could see, I had the self-awareness to know I could do better. And the only one stopping me was me and my internal dialogue. And once I changed that, I'm like, why did I wait that many years to not do this? I was scared of being bedridden after having them out. I mean, so many things that did not come true. It's catastrophizing is really catastrophizing, adrenal stress, and mercury. They're like, I mean, it's 1, 2, 3. You go from the toxicity to the adrenal stress to the anxiety. It's just
And then
like
you
a
don't sleep,
super
and
one-on-one
it's the
correlation
gift
thing.
that keeps on giving.
Yes, yes. And it's keeping you stuck, because anxiety keeps you stuck in a place. You do not make decisions. You're just stuck, stuck, stuck.
Well,
And
that's a
but you don't
famous,
realize that you're stuck in that moment. You
yeah.
just think you're doing this to hedge against something else. What if? The catastrophizing thing. It could be worse. Well, it could also be better, but it's really hard to believe that when you're in the pit, when you're just
Britt,
trying to survive.
what do you why do you think why do you think this protocol is not known? I mean, there's so many kids out there. It's almost half of the kids now who need to do it. Maybe more than almost every kid I see needs to do it.
I think the second we say, you can't use the V's, people will either go, okay, or they'll go, no, that's not how I view,
Yes.
taking care of my child, and that's not what's best for them. Or we tell them how long this takes, and they run the other direction.
So the ones that
Yes.
have gotten past going to pediatricians, then they get held up by the fact that this is a long process.
I was telling someone about this one day, a family member, and she also has 2 children with autism, and she goes, oh, so we could do this in like a week? And I'm like, no, years.
You got to manage expectations. Yes.
Years. And she goes, oh, no, I'm not interested then. And I'm like,
Ouch.
how though? Like, if your child is not talking, like I saw one of her kids a couple weeks ago, and one of the children is still not talking, and he's 6, I think. And I'm just like, how on earth would a few years of your life not be worth changing the trajectory of this child's life?
Yes.
I can't comprehend how people don't think this is not worth a few years of lost sleep. You do it anyways. If you have kids for a few years, you aren't sleeping in the middle of the night. You're getting up every few hours. Take some chelator while you're at it. It's hard to understand. I mean, I don't want my kids to have to learn to cope. No one should have to cope with their health.
And the parents are coping with parenting a special needs kid. I did not realize what kind of stress it was until my child got better. All the things we did that parents of neurotypical children don't even fathom, don't even have. And I just adapting to my child so much and accommodating because I want to support my child, but it was running me ragged. And I'm like, I didn't have a degree in early childhood, development or something. So it was like, okay, I'm just dealing with my kid. That is my baseline of this is the child I need to parent. But it's so stressful. I think there was a study that's probably over a decade by now old, but where it compared parenting that mothers of special needs children basically have war veteran, combat veteran levels of stress and PTSD.
Yeah.
But it's in your own house. The stress is in your own house. Worrying about your child eloping, in public. Because at home, they may have locks and sensors on windows and all these things. But then outside the home, it's just, nerve-wracking. It's isolating. It's socially isolating.
Yes.
It's extremely stressful when only the nuclear family is raising the child. It breaks up marriages. I mean, there's so much to it that help your child and the whole family system. The stress will come down for everybody when your child's neurology calms down, when they can function better and grow and develop skills that are totally age appropriate, when they can catch up to that. It just
when the couple sees some hope, some improvement and some hope, there's more chance that they won't break up. Yeah.
Well, my oldest son turns 15 tomorrow, and he's at that age where he's coming into teen, he's coming into finding himself. He's realizing, there's milestones coming up like driving a car and things like that. And, he's not ready yet. He's about 10 in his mind. He's just not ready. And he doesn't understand that. And it's like, it's things like this, like if we're not doing anything about it, if we're learning coping skills, if we're putting in, if we're planning to have certain therapies for life and certain, resources in store, set up for life, they're going to miss out on these milestones. If I'm not chelating him, he's not going to drive. He's not going to live on his own. He's not going to have all the opportunities that, the neurotypical children are having. So to me, it's like, if we want them to have the best chance to have the most normal, I know normal is not a thing, but the most neurotypical life, like this is a must. This is a must for them. And, I feel like if we're not at least trying it, giving it a shot, and if it works, going all the way to the end with it, we're robbing them of something that they should get to experience.
Their potential,
if we had some sort of like a credentialed person, as a spokesman, there's no doctors. A few of them are starting to get interested. There's what's the name of that lady who's in our group now? Everybody respects her.
Is it Suzanne?
Suzanne Humphreys, yeah. But she comes out and says that she's mercury toxic, but she hasn't said anything about this. I guess people are, it's I mean, you get stepped on.
And she was silenced brutally. I mean, her channels were cut off by mainstream media. She was too controversial during COVID. Yeah.
We're going against Western medicine, and the whole world believes in Western medicine. And I mean, at least here,
I don't know if we're going against it.
It's allopathic. This is an allopathic. This is an allopathic method. Andy's always said that. This is not. anything alternative. It's just that nobody's
Andy
looking
made
to
it
this.
safe. He made chelation safe. He called it low dose frequent as opposed to high dose infrequent, 1 DMSA or 2 DMSA pills a day at hundreds of milligrams a day, per dose. He did say that. He made this method safer. The problem is, and this is what I remember from back in the day, Dan doctors, basically their concern was that parents would not comply with the nighttime dosing, not skipping doses at night. And so that was just doctors deciding that parents weren't going to comply instead of saying, hey, this is critical. I tell my clients, like, you can't skip anything. I mean, I think by now that question doesn't even come up anymore. That's been communicated really well over the years, but it's doable. I mean, people do other things on rigid schedules. This is the other thing I tell parents. Yes, this is for a couple of years, but it's not forever. There are parents who are like, oh, I don't want to give my child all these supplements. Can I do food? It's like, this is a temporary aid while you're removing the heavy metals that are actually causing all this rampant oxidative damage. So you are making this a smoother experience. Like, we're not doing anybody a favor trying to chelate with just the chelator and, oh, I don't take this and I don't need that and I react to this. It's like, you're hurting yourself more trying to go without the support, and then you complain that it doesn't work. Then really, I'm not going to help. If you're hurting yourself, I'm not going to be part of that. You either get with the program. We're very much average in that we benefit from the essential 4 supplements, plus some A's, plus maybe some omega-3s, and to help our nervous system heal while we're doing this in our body. So, and it's temporary. You won't have to have this cupboard full of supplements for the rest of your life. It'll, I've seen it with my oldest. It's not like he needs all the supplements anymore.
I still have a bunch.
Yeah, and I'm at this point where I'm like, oh, I'm going to empty this and not replace it. Like, I can whittle it down. Yeah.
Well,
I feel like the government has made the government and our medical system here, at least in the US, they kind of tell people what to do. This is what you should do to take care of your health. And then when we show up with something that's also not completely unreasonable, if it doesn't follow what, the mainstream is doing for healthcare, it's like, no, that's not right.
The other thing.
Yeah. You don't even need doctors anymore. We don't even need doctors anymore. Like, they can just, like, the artificial intelligence will do the job just as well as the MDs.
They've done something for, I think it was breast cancer imaging or something, where they trained an AI and it actually detected some unusual type of things.
Yeah, it's probably better. Except they're going to program that AI. They're going to program that AI per the machine, the artificial idiot, to pick out every tiny thing so they can sell more.
It's about pattern matching. I mean, I think it found, like, I don't know what the percentage was, but it saved a few more lives by helping with early detection. So I think there's something to be said. If we use technology ethically, that's the key word here. Yes. The US is like the Wild West about AI. Europe is already saying, hey, we're going to put some clamps on this. We don't want it to go crazy haywire, because the marketing, it can be used for marketing too, where, I'm advertised to, like, hey, get this messaging bot. I'm like, no, I want to talk to a real person myself. I want the people who want to seek out my opinion to get my actual human brain and not some canned pre-programmed response type thing.
Oh, it's very interesting. That's for sure.
The other part I wanted to say earlier said, Brittany, about how, it's outside of mainstream medicine. My thing is, I feel even doctors are lied to. Dentists and doctors are lied to. They're told that, oh, a little bit, this amount of, mercury can't possibly cause this much neurological damage.
Well, they should know
because
better.
doctors can treat acute high exposure mercury toxicity. We're talking you have seizures or you're already unconscious and comatose. They will recognize why that's going on based on a blood draw. But when we're dealing with this low grade, I call it, it's kind of like other chronic things in the
Yeah,
with
it's
health
chronic
nowadays that,
toxicity.
you know,
Yeah.
a doctor can help you when you have, you know, a broken bone. They can help set it, right? That's a good intervention. Like, I wouldn't want to do this at home. And I'm sure there are indigenous populations where they did things too to mend things and have people still walking and functioning. But allopathic medicine is good for the acute stuff. It's not good with anything chronic. You talk about autoimmune disease, they don't have much past replacement hormones for Hashimoto's thyroiditis. They don't have much past steroids for something like rheumatoid arthritis. So,
yes,
or things that depress the immune system, you know, like, but then you read the, you know, whenever you see an ad for a medication, oh, this is, you can move again, but now you have to worry about catching, you know, pneumonia knocking you out and TB. Like, sorry, what's the trade-off here? I don't know. Like, people could change their diet, maybe change what they put into their body and, you know, get improvement, but that's asking too much, it seems. And patients also go to a doctor with the expectation of get out your notepad or create my prescription on the computer. Doctors, I think, are stuck there. And then the whole acknowledgement of even these tiny amounts of mercury can cause damage. That would just go so much against their worldview and their dogma.
well,
Until you have that acknowledgement, I don't think ACC will be a mainstream standard of care for chronic low-grade mercury toxicity. That's my part there.
you remember Andy always saying that doctors are all liberal arts majors. And that
Or like,
technical people are horrified by their lack of technical background, and that the medical schools actually
liberal arts,
teach
yes.
out liberal arts majors.
Because they
Yeah.
have good bedside manner.
Well, I haven't found such great bedside manners, but I found
And I
more,
mean,
I found
gotta be a
the
healthy
specialists
balance.
to be more intellectual, like technically intellectual than
We need the knowledge and we need to be able to convey it. I think there has to be a balance of both. If you're brilliant in one field but can't communicate it, it's like, you know.
You mean
But-
if you're like a mercury toxic person with Asperger's syndrome?
You know, and
There
you
sure are a
can't
lot
have
of people
Asperger's
like that out there.
syndrome. Yes, and it's like, okay, just talk to them, and it's tricky. And see, Andy was very, very socially intelligent, so he has the high intelligence. He had the high IQ and the EQ. I think he just had the poor boundaries of not taking enough time to heal himself some more and take care of himself.
Yeah.
And that's why I think his mercury toxicity still showed up in a way. And I say that in the most loving way because
Yeah, we really loved him. He was a very lovely person. He was very kind. Yeah. Well, okay. Well, let's end it on that note. We've been here about an hour. Sandra, will you next time? I had a hard time hearing you, so hitch up your husband's technology next time.
I will, absolutely. I'll
All
tell
right.
him to give me the lighting right and make sure
right.
I speak into the mic here and pick it up right.
Goodbye to you both. Good luck with everything the next month. Bye-bye.
Yes.